humanity. Keep watching The Politics every Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time on New York Parrot TV, the voice for humanity.
Welcome to Talking Politics. I am your host, Robert Press. I write for the Bronx Chronicle, as you can see by my official New York City press card. I also contribute to the Co-op City News, the Parkchester Times, which the latter, like this show, is part of Muslim media. I also have a blog at www.100%bronx.blogspot.com and Facebook pages 100% and What is Going On in Your Community Board. The views expressed on this show are those of the host, any guest, or any commentator whose comments you may see scroll across the bottom of your screen and are not necessarily those of Muslim media. Let's quickly go to the weather. Today, it will be sunny at 63 degrees. Saturday will be 60, Sunday 72. However, late Saturday night going into Sunday morning, you could see a little rain. And Monday, it should break the 80-degree mark, topping off at 81. I have today as my guest Assemblywoman Jennifer Raj Kumar, who is the prime sponsor of Bill 8428/S7998. A is for Assembly, S is for Senate, called the Smokeout Act, which padlocks illegal smoke shops, which is unlike a similar bill, A 9520/S8847 by Assemblyman John Sicaro Jr., that is the deterrent to selling illegal cannabis by revoking tobacco, liquor, and lottery licenses of business after repeated sales of illegal cannabis for 1 year and 5 years for a third offense. Both passed this year, but I want to introduce the Assemblywoman Jennifer Raj Kumar to tell us why her bill is better and it will padlock the stores. Assemblywoman.
Hello, Robert. Thank you for having me. So it is true. Last week, I achieved a historic victory in Albany when my Smokeout Act passed in the state budget. People kept talking about wanting to shut down illegal shops. And I said, let's stop talking and let's get it done. And that's what I did. I authored the Smokeout Act on the very first day of the legislative session because it is time to smoke them out and shut them all down. And so my win in the budget is going to allow the city of New York to close down all the legal smoke shops immediately. In fact, Mayor Eric Adams has said upon the passage of Smokeout Act, he will be able to shut down all the illegal smoke shops in 30 days. And so the budget, specifically the Smokeout Act in the budget, is going to change the face of cannabis enforcement in our city. So currently, the city has to wait for the State Office of Cannabis Management before it can take action against an illegal smoke shop. But guess what? The State Office of Cannabis Management only has 14 inspectors to shut down 36,000 illegal shops. It just doesn't have the manpower. But you know who has the manpower? The city of New York. And now with this budget, the city of New York will be able to deputize the NYPD to shut down the shops. So the city of New York will be able to use its full manpower to shut down these shops once and for all.
Now, why would the police or the NYPD be able to sell them? I understand there are 4 categories of which can be done: selling cannabis to children, operating next to a school, selling unregulated cannabis, and having the presence of an illegal firearm. Is that the 4 parts of your act?
That's exactly right. So if you fall under one of those 4 categories, you will be shut down immediately. And 99% of illegal smoke shops are in one of those 4 categories.
That's correct, because I know here in Community Board 11 in the Bronx, where I'm at, in the Morris Park section of the Bronx, we have at least a dozen stores that are openly displaying illegal cannabis. So I invite you to come up to the Bronx and help close some of these stores. I'll contact your office on this. Now, let's go on to another topic, the state budget. Okay. Do you have any comments about the state budget, what you might want to have seen in it, what didn't get into it, or any comments about the state budget?
$237 billion budget passed. We did it. I'm very happy to see that for hate crimes, we expanded the categories of offenses that count as hate crimes. This is really important because there's been a rise in anti-Semitism in our city, as well as Islamophobia and anti-Asian hate. So we need to take care of this problem once and for all. I'm also very looking forward to my post-budget agenda, Robert. And one thing that I'm focused on is regulating the e-bike industry. Did you know that there was a record number of deaths and injuries due to e-bikes last year?
Yes, I did. That's a big problem up here because this area of the East Bronx was one of the first areas as a pilot program. It's worked a little, but what's happening now is we have a new Metro North station, two new Metro North stations opening up. And we're not going to have any parking. We're not going to have any transportation to get there. And the city planning has told us that, well, you could take an e-bike there. And, these e-bikes are parked in driveways. They're found all over the place. Some of them have been found in one of our rivers. So I'm glad you're trying to do something to regulate the e-bikes. The problem with e-bikes are sometimes you can't see them in the dark at night. They have just a little light on the bottom with nothing up on the top to show you that they're there. And there's no license plate. We see children riding these bikes. So, I hope that works. Anything else you want to say?
Yes, what I'm trying to do is make sure that every e-bike has a license plate and is subject to insurance and inspection to make the problem safer. And you outlined the problem very well. And also, I'd like to say that there's something very personal to me that I'm working on. It didn't get in the budget, but I'm hopeful we can do it by the end of the legislative session. And that is there are many women that experience the tragedy of stillbirth. Their baby is tragically born dead. And as soon as that happens, these women get their benefits yanked from them. So what I want to do is make sure that paid family leave covers women that suffer the tragedy of stillbirth. That's about 1,400 women in our state every single year. This is so popular. This bill has over 100 co-sponsors on both sides of the aisle. So I really hope that I can get it done this year.
Yes, well, we have an empty building at Jacoby Hospital that our borough president, Vanessa Gibson, would like to see a birthing center, which would help, stop some of this. But unfortunately, with the closure of Rikers Island, it's planned to send at least 50 inmates or people currently in Rikers Island in the infirmary who are so-called classified as sick into this building that will just have a security guard. Now, these people are currently in Rikers awaiting trial on charges that are really major crimes because otherwise they'd be out in the street with no cash bail, which I'll talk to you in a moment about. So, we could use this building at Jacoby Hospital for a much better way to help the people of the Bronx. And let's move on to the no cash bail. What's happening with no cash bail? Because there has to be major reforms done to that.
I agree with you. We have a major repeat offender problem in this city. It's the same group of people committing most of the crimes. This has to stop. We have to use our common sense. And that's what I'm an advocate for in Albany. I believe that judges need discretion so that they can determine if someone is obviously a threat to society. They should not be out on the streets. And there's a way to do this while also securing the civil rights of people. I am a civil rights attorney. That's my background. But public safety is so important. And that's the number one concern of most New Yorkers. When I ran for office, I knocked on every single door. The number one concern is public safety. In minority communities, that's the number one concern. And it harms our minority communities when people are not safe. So I absolutely am in favor of a common sense approach. And I applaud my colleagues. You mentioned Assemblyman John Zaccaro. He is a common sense legislator. He cares about public safety. He cares about shutting down the smoke shops, as well as the Bronx Borough President, Vanessa Gibson. Incredible government partners who have a common sense approach and want to keep our streets safe.
Now, you mentioned Assemblyman Zaccaro again. We had a legal cannabis store open up on Williamsbridge Road in his district which was right across the street from a school play yard. And while it met the current status of being more than 500 feet from the entrance to the school, which was around the corner, local residents complained that it's right across the street from the school. It shouldn't be there. And the rules are that it has to be 500 feet from the entrance to the school. A cannabis store has to be 1,000 feet away from another cannabis store, which means you could have one on every block almost. 200 feet from a freestanding house of worship, and 500 feet from, as I said, from the school. Now, Assemblyman Sakaro said he was going to try and raise those limits to, say, 1,000 feet from the school, 500 feet from a church, and more than 1,000 feet apart, so they wouldn't be on each block. Did anything like that happen up in Albany?
Yes, it did. And I thank him for his advocacy on that. Well, in the budget, we were able to secure a major achievement. One of the categories of egregious actor. You will be qualified as egregious actor as an illegal smoke shop if you are anywhere near a school or if you're selling to children at all. So I expect that this problem is going to be taken care of, and we will just shut those that are anywhere near a school down immediately.
And before I end this, my final question to you as a former parent leader, mayoral control of the schools. It's felt by parents and others that there's been no real progress on mayoral control. The assembly wasn't going to pick it up, or I should say the state legislature wasn't going to discuss it, but they've extended it for 2 years. What is your opinion on the extension of mayoral control?
My opinion is it's a great victory. I was advocating for an extension, and I'm so glad that that entered the budget at the last minute, because it's the only practical way to run the schools. Currently, New York City's reading scores are outpacing the state scores. And, mayoral control, it replaced a system that didn't work. We have to remember the reasons that we implemented mayoral control. It was because before that, we had a decentralized system that was rife with corruption. It wasn't working. And mayoral control worked. So I really applaud also the city of New York and the mayor for some of the initiatives they've implemented. Dyslexia screening in schools. We're the first city in the nation to have such a program, as well as NYC Reads, a groundbreaking reading program in schools, changing the way children are reading. So I applaud what the administration is doing with the schools, and now they'll be able to build upon that great work now that we've extended mayoral control.
Okay, I kind of disagree with you. I'm with Senator John Liu on the issue. I think mayoral control is not working because the scores really haven't gone up over the years. But we can agree to disagree. I want to thank you for coming on the show. I'm going to now go to a commercial, and when I come back, I'll go back to my regular news. And once again, thank you, Assemblywoman Raj Kumar, for coming on the show and explaining your smokeout bill and talking a little bit more about state politics. I hope to have you back on the show sometime in the near future, and thank you for coming on to the show.
Thank you. Can't wait to see you again.
So let's go to a commercial right now, and I'll come back with the regular news.
In a world where the quality of information available to poorer communities is doctored, tainted, and sometimes regressive, where the words fake news have come to mean other people's opinions, it is vital to rely on news platforms with journalists who have feet on the ground and can report the truth. New York Parrot, a New York-based national and global news outlet, is changing the narratives of media operations. We focus on the news that matters, like self-empowerment, entrepreneurship, finances, health, security, politics, and more. We strive to curb violence, racial and economic discrimination, and to promote peace and socio-economic development of multiculturally diverse world. As we give voice to the people, we also give your business a voice and make it heard. Get your products and services off the ground by advertising on our fast-growing platform. With so much of daily visits to New York Parrot, you can't afford to be invisible to prospective clients on the websites they trust the most. Our posts reach millions of people across the New York State and around the world. Advertising on our news site will unlock an audience of thousands of potential customers on your doorstep. New York Parrot is born to prosperously speak tomorrow for the voiceless.
Okay, let me once again thank Assemblywoman Jennifer Raj Kumar for coming on the show and explaining her smokeout bill and talking a little bit about the state budget. But let's get back to our normal show. So here's the news of the day. The head of the Israeli military intelligence has resigned over the Hamas October 7th attack. Major General Aharon Haliva, the head of Israel's military intelligence, became the first senior Israeli figure to step down after the failures surrounding the Hamas attack. This could set the stage for more resignations in the Israeli intelligence section. Now, disgraced former Representative George Santos has killed his short-lived bid for a new seat in Congress, announcing his withdrawal from the race in the 1st Congressional District. Meanwhile, President Joe Biden has visited central New York yesterday on the heels of announcement of funding for Micron. The president visited Syracuse to discuss the economic impact of the CHIPS and Science Act, which the White House said the exact details of his visit has not been released, but while they're being released today, and he came with U.S. Senator Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and announced that Micron has agreed to a preliminary deal that would unlock more than $6 billion in federal funding towards its chip manufacturing plant in the region. Schumer's office said the company has agreed to a $6.1 billion primary memorandum of terms, a funding agreement that covers the project in Clay near the city of Syracuse and one in Idaho. Schumer's office said it's tied to a larger $100 billion plan to build 4 chip fab plants in central New York. The money would come through the federal CHIPS and Science law, which Schumer was one of the lead architects of it in 2022. However, this was Biden's second visit to central New York in less than 2 years. He visited in 2022, shortly after the announcement of Micron's investment in the region, saying at that time the region is poised to lead the world in advanced manufacturing. After visiting Syracuse, Biden traveled to Westchester County today for a campaign reception, and he will be also in New York City today. So watch out for gridlock if you're in Manhattan or in New York City, Westchester area. An Arizona grand jury has indicted former President Donald Trump's chief of staff, Mark Meadows, lawyer Rudy Giuliani, and 16 others for their roles in an attempt to overthrow Trump's loss to Joe Biden in the 2020 election. But let me remind you of those famous words you've seen on Law and Order and TV. You can indict a ham sandwich. An indictment means really nothing. It's only, as we can see right now with the Trump trial, with Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg going after Donald Trump on his hush money hush money trial. As we mentioned, the budget, Governor Hochul's favorability ratings has dropped. It's now about 40%. That's down slightly from February. With those numbers, they stood at about 41% favorable and 46% unfavorable. New Yorkers didn't view the Senate or the Assembly particularly well in the poll by Siena. For the state Senate, 42% of the New Yorkers had an unfavorable opinion compared to 37% who had a favorable opinion. The Assembly failed a little better, with 38 viewing the chamber negatively and 35 viewing it positively. On the topic of retail theft, Hochul made significant focus on a budget a vast majority, 76%, considered to be a major problem in the state. Meanwhile, New Yorkers also largely disapproved of the jobs of that President Biden, Hochul, and New York City Mayor Eric Adams has done in managing the influx of migrants to New York City over the past 2 years. 55% disapproved of the job Adams has done, with 24% approving. Hochul was a 58% disapproval with a 33% approval, and Biden was the worst at 62% disapproval with a 34% approval. With congestion pricing coming into effect soon, a majority of New Yorkers, 63%, also said they opposed the tolling screen. Let's move on to the City of New York budget. New York City Mayor Eric Adams released on Wednesday the city's $100 an $11.6 billion fiscal year 2025 executive budget that runs from July 1st of this year through June 30th of next year. FY 24 and 25 remain balanced with out-year gaps of $5.5 billion, $5.5 billion, and $5.7 billion in fiscal years 26 through 28. Obviously, that's because Mayor Adams probably will not be reelected. Growth of $2.2 billion in FY 25 over the preliminary budget is driven by stronger than expected economic activity in FY 24 and improved outlook in FY 24. That was an opinion of myself about the mayor, by the way. When we came into office 2 years ago during the COVID-19 pandemic, we were determined to protect public safety, rebuild our economy, and make our city more livable for working class New Yorkers, Mayor Adams said. We have made great strides in these commitments and crime is down. Yeah, come to the Bronx, Mayor Adams. Jobs are up, our streets are cleaner, and we're taking on major quality issues of life. We financed the most newly constructed affordable housing in a single year in our city's history. Tax revenues have been revised up by $619 million in FY 24 and $1.7 billion in FY 25. However, the tax revenue growth is expected to cool in the upcoming fiscal years as the local economy slows, bolstering the fact that the city cannot rely exclusively on revenue growth to resolve fiscal challenges. The FY 25 executive budget maintains a near record $8.2 billion in reserves, including $1.2 billion in the general reserve, $4.8 billion in the retiree health benefits trust fund, $250 million in the capital stabilization reserve, and $1.96 billion in the rainy day fund. Let's move on to people who obscure their license plates. Drivers in New York who obscure their license plates to avoid paying tolls will face steep penalties, including potential loss of their car registration under legislation as part of this year's state budget. I forgot to ask the Assemblywoman on that. The measure comes as congestion pricing begins in June, which will impose a $15 daytime toll on drivers who enter Manhattan below 60th Street. Those readers are up already. State lawmakers have said legislation aims to prevent people from skirting those fees, as well as others in the city that are collected through Easy Pass and license plates. The budget imposes new consequences on drivers who cover their plates with glass or other materials that prevent cameras from reading their license plates. It includes people who scratch off parts of their plate. According to legislation, anyone caught violating the law will be subject to surrendering the cover and fines ranging from $100 to $500. If a driver has been convicted more than 3 times covering their plate in a 5-year period, the legislation empowers state officials to suspend their vehicle registration. The MTA, meanwhile, estimates it loses about $50 million per year on toll evasions on its bridges and tunnels. A report published last month by Citizens Budget Committee found the city's Department of Transportation lost more than $100 million to drivers who obscure their plates to avoid automated camera tickets. That's the red light cameras and the speeding cameras. So if we crack down now, why are we cracking down now? Because of congestion pricing. They don't want to lose the additional money that they'll get from the congestion pricing, but it's okay if you had it for the speed cameras, the red light cameras, and the tolls on the bridges. Yeah, right. Okay. If you enjoy your free fare on certain buses of the MTA, the free rides will soon be over. The MTA's experiment in fairless city bus services will come to an end after Albany lawmakers did not reauthorize it in the newly enacted state budget. There was one MTA bus in each borough that had been fare-free since September as part of the pilot project, which required the MTA to undertake an experiment as a condition of its financial rescue package, which the state passed last year. The pilot cost $15 million to run the 5 lines. It was the BX-18 in the Bronx, as well as others in other boroughs. Lawmakers sought to reauthorize it at triple the size of the budget this year, but the fare-free pilot was left on the cutting room floor. New York was one of several cities to experiment with free bus service. Boston has made several lines fare-free in the past few years, while Kansas City has free bus and streetcar service since 2019. The MTA did not immediately say when the pilot will end, though the latest possible date is September of this year, which is a year after the activation. We have a few minutes left, and let's get some filler here. The Department of Correction came out with their March data from City Controller Brad Lander. It appears that there are 6,333 people detained as of April 1st, 96 more than in March. They incarcerated 2,051 people in March, 161 people more than February. They discharged 1,957 people in March, 125 more than February. The average length of stay for a detainee in Rikers in the Department of Correction custody was 96 days, the same from the previous month. There were 84 new corrections officers hired, which is the first class of the staff, uniform staff, since October 2023. 20% of the incarcerated people have a serious mental illness for the fourth consecutive month. Finally, 553 fights broke out, 81 more than in February, and 42 assaults on officers occurred, which was 3 fewer in February. There were 27 slashings and stabbings, which were the same from the prior month. And Mr. Roy Savage died in custody, bringing the total number of deaths to 3 in 2024. The cause of his death is unknown. Let's see if we have any others. Randy Mastro's nomination to replace Sylvia Hand as the corporate counsel lawyer. Well, it appears some city council members have announced that they will oppose Mr. Mastro's nomination without vetting his background, holding hearings on his candidacy, or for that matter, even meeting him. Is that how a city council confirmation process should work or not? Some people say. The New York City public school system could see a budget shrink by 2.4%, or $808 million next fiscal year, largely because of expiring relief dollars, despite the mayor's Adams' executive budget planning a slew of educational programs. Last night, there was a meeting of Community Board 11. This was a meeting which was supposed to go as planned. There was an investigation committee report that was planning to clear the chair, Bernadette Ferrara, and vice chair, Al D'Angelo, of charges which were brought. They were unfounded according to the committee. Here we go. Okay, the motion was that Community Board 11 allows Chair Ferrara and Vice Chair D'Angelo to remain in their leadership positions in Community Board 11 for the duration of their respective terms, which would end in June, because last night Community Board 11 held a meeting, as I said, and they nominated certain people to take over to be chair. They nominated 3 people for the chair position, which did not include either one of the 2 members that I just mentioned. They put up 4 people for vice chair and 3 people for the secretary position. Those 3 positions were open. The other 2 positions, treasurer and sergeant of arms, are on the other year. It's the odd year that those are, than the even years that these 3. The motion, as I said, to allow the chair and vice chair to remain went down. There were 17 in favor, 20 against, and 3 abstentions, which is 40 votes. Later on, there were motions to remove Chair Farrar as chair of the board. The vote, as I had it, was 22 in favor of removal, 9 against, and 2 abstentions, which is 33 votes. Then there was a motion to remove Mr. D'Angelo as vice chair. And again, as my count had 28 in favor, 8 against, 2 abstentions, which is 33 votes. Now, what happened to the 7 people who left? If you're on a community board, you're expected to stay the full meeting. The meeting ended before 10 p.m., started a little after 7. And the last minutes on the Community Board 11 website is January 2024, which also has the attendance of February 24, which I found amusing. And they are not up to date. The last minutes are December 2023. The February 24 and March 24 minutes are not up. The last treasurer's report is November 2023, and there is no district service cabinet meetings up that go back to January 2022. The district manager said at a meeting about 2 months ago that he did not have a district service cabinet meeting for a year, which is mandated by the city charter, where all city agencies send representatives to the community board district service cabinet meeting, go over problems with the district manager, representatives of the local elected officials. I know that because I represented former Councilman Andy King at the District 11 district service cabinet meeting in 2021, 2022, and it seems that Borough President Gibson now has a bigger problem on her hands with Community Board 11. She removed one member. Also last night, a couple of members have handed in their resignation over what happened. And I will say that I have applied for Community Board 11. I hope if the Borough President puts me on that I can bring my experience. We have other experienced members like that are on Community Board 11, and hopefully we can get Community Board 11 back together and working on the way it should be. And let me say thank you for watching. Since I'm a little over my time limit, I want to thank Assemblywoman Jennifer Raj Kumar for coming on again, and hope to see you next week. Thank you for watching.